fall. But I'm up here rising, I don't feel that at all. You throw little words like they don't come. But energy circles, remember that. You sleep at night, and noise inside. Let mine go. That's why I'm feeling good today. Nothing empty on a fade away. You can try, but I won't invade. These two wheels, I won't trade my space. Feeling good today. Woke up right. I'm staying that way. You can keep all that space. I'm good. I'm good today. How you feeling? When all you do is bring people down. Be real. Don't let it happen now. Let it go. I'll bring my soul. That's why I love. To feel it's here to stay. I woke up blessed and I'm keeping my praise. Feeling good today, I'm so strong. Don't need no shade. You can keep that way. I'm good, I'm good today. I'm good today.
Let me run that back one more time and we're going to get started here. As you come into the room this morning, go ahead and drop your greetings.
You wake up, better somebody else's life. Be me. You wake up talking, or you even pray. All that negativity, what a heavy way to start your day. Running people down like it feeds your soul. But every word you throw in, taking on a toll. Tell me how it feels, carrying all that weight. Hate you giving, don't sit on your plate. Hey, feeling good today, smile on my face, ain't going away. You can talk, you can say what you say, but I'm too blessed, I won't carry that weight. Feeling good today, life in myself, I'm moving my way. You can keep all that stuff, I'm good today. Rolling, watching, waiting on a fall. But I'm up here rising, I don't feel that at all. You throw little words like they don't come. Cause remember that you sleep at night, and noise inside. Let mine go. That's why I'm feeling good today. Nothing empty on a fade away. You can try, but I won't engage. These two wheels, I won't take my place. I'm feeling good today. Woke up right. I'm staying that way. You can keep all that way. I'm good. I'm good today. How you feeling? When all you do is bring people down. Be real. Don't let it happen now. Let it go. I'll free my soul. That's why I love. Feeling good today, nothing in me gonna break my way. You feel it's here to stay. I woke up blessed, and I'm keeping my praise. Good today, it's so strong. Don't need no shade. You can keep that way. I'm good. I'm good today. I'm good today.
Excellent. Grand rising, everyone. I pray that things are well with you. Hold on, I got an echo. Let me cut something off. 1 second here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome, excellent. Yes, Grand Rising. I pray things are well with each of you as we step into this new day called Today. Today is the 5th of July. I pray that you had an uneventful yesterday across the country. I see we continue to have the heat wave, and we had strong storms coming across the country, and I see that many of the individuals who had planned to go to parades were not able to do so. The universe has a way of setting everything right. All right, we're going to get started this morning. If this is your first time with us, I welcome you to our community. If you've been here before, welcome back. Either way, I'm glad you're here. My name is Greg Stanton, also known as Asar. I am your melanated metaphysical mystic. I serve as the facilitator of the Sundays of Science Successful Living Seminars. That's quite a mouthful. Here at Oasis Everywhere, a community built not on what you must believe, but on who you are becoming. Last Sunday, we began with a question most of us have carried longer than we realize. Where does that quiet drop? Hold on, I got an echo coming somewhere. I need to check something right quick. Let me see. I think I got something on in here. 1 second. Let me move this. All right, I had another phone on in there. I see. Great, great. So let's pick up. So on last week, we began with the question most of us have carried longer than we realized. And that question was, where does that quiet drop in our chest that something is wrong with me actually originate? Where does that come from? We named it as what we call sin consciousness. We trace it back to one man's grief in Psalms 51, the David Psalm. And then we went on to reclaim the older truth, the fall, whatever form it took in our lives, scattered our awareness. It never touched our nature, however. So this Sunday, we want to go one level deeper. Not just what the fall did, but how did it do it? How it got into us. Not that kind of thinking. Not just something was placed over you, but who placed it and why? And what does it mean for every relationship you've ever had with the people who handed you the framework that you may be currently living inside of? So I want to start this morning with an image. I want you to think of someone you loved or you may currently love who was deeply religious. Now, all of us probably got someone like that in our lives. It could be a grandmother, grandfather, or uncle, aunt, or just simply a parent. A spiritual leader who genuinely cared about you, someone whose faith was not performance, but was woven into everything about how they moved through the world. Now, I want you to hold this alongside it. The same person handed you a framework about yourself and about the divine that may have placed a wall between you and your own sovereign nature. And they did it with every ounce of love they possessed. You know, so uh and they didn't have malice, they didn't have any intention to offset you, but they did it from a place of love. Now, both of those things are true at the same time. And this is where we begin in week 2 of this 5-week series I'm inside of. We don't begin with anger or blame, but with a kind of precise clarity that actually frees each of us. Because you cannot close a door you've never been willing to look at directly. Before we go any further, I need to introduce someone. Because the name I'm about to use throughout this entire message, Set, S-E-T, may be unfamiliar to many of you. And I want to make sure we all are standing on the same ground before I build on it. In the Kemetic tradition, ancient Egypt, that is, the oldest continuous civilization on record, Set is the principle of fragmentation, of chaos, and necessary opposition. We'll circle back to that. It's not about evil. This is a distinction that is critical. Set is the force that tests whether sovereignty is real. It is the storm that reveals how deep the roots go. He that is Set and Asar are brothers when you look at the Osirian drama. There are two aspects of the same cosmological drama. Set exists because sovereignty exists. You cannot know the depth of your own nature without encountering the force that challenges it. And many of us call it our enemy. Many of us call it the enemy. Now, here's where it becomes personal for those of you in this space specifically this morning. You have always known Set. You were just handed a different name for calling it. You were handed Satan. And I know, and I want to show you, I want to show you this morning precisely how that name change happened. Because it was not accidental. It was an intellectual decision made by specific human beings in a specific place for a specific institutional purpose. When the Greek scholars and later Roman theologians encountered the Kemetic traditions through conquests and cultural exchange, they began identifying Set with their own figure of absolute chaos, and they call it Typhon, the monstrous enemy of order. That identification was the first translation error. Set as necessary challenger became Set as an absolute monster. The nuance was stripped deliberately. Now, little history. In 325 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea, which many of you are familiar with. It was a gathering of church bishops whose purpose was to standardize Christian doctrine across the empire. Among the decisions that was made in that room was the systematic construction of Satan as an absolute adversary, not necessarily a challenger, not a principle that tests sovereignty, an absolute enemy requiring absolute institutional protection. The theological logic was elegant. If the adversary is absolute, then you need absolute institutional mediation to be safe from it. You cannot handle Satan yourself. You are not equipped. This is what the teaching is around. You need the church. You need the priest. You need the prescribed pathway between you and the threat, which was Satan. The more absolute they made the adversary, that is, they moved Set to Satan, the more essential they made their institution. Now, Set, the necessary challenger, the brother of Asar, the force that tests sovereignty without destroying it, was translated into Satan, specifically because a necessary challenger does not produce dependency. An absolute monster does. So I want you to know, park right here with this thought. When we talk about Set, when we talk about Asar, we're not talking about two literal figures. We're talking about a metaphor. We're talking about a story that is used in order that we can better move through life and understand these divine principles. But when we look at Set and Satan, it was not theology. This whole shift was a political and institutional decision made by scholars who understood exactly what they were doing. This is why I use Set and not Satan throughout the series that we in this week. Not to be provocative, but to restore the precision that was removed. Because when you understand Set as a necessary challenger in all of our lives, rather than an absolute enemy, everything about your own moments of drift, doubt, misalignment changes. You're not being assaulted by an absolute evil. You're being tested by a principle that is necessary and that has always been part of your sovereign drama, and that you are responsible for acknowledging. In your sovereign nature, it equips you to have mastery of life. Now, when we look at this, in my book that is soon to be released called Sovereign Spirituality, I open up with a line in chapter 2 of that book. It says, Set does not arrive as an enemy, it arrives as family, as community, as the people who you love and love you, as the tradition that shaped every generation before yours. That is how Set shows up. This is the most important thing to understand about how the conditioning of forgetting gets installed, and the easiest thing to miss. Now, when I use the word architecture, I want to define it plainly so we are all standing on the same ground, moving from the same space. What I mean is this: a system of beliefs that was built around you, deliberately designed piece by piece to make you dependent on something outside of yourself for access to what you already are. Not random, not accidental, designed the way a building is designed, with a purpose, with an intended outcome. That is the architecture. And once you see it as a design rather than a truth, everything changes. Set does not come in wearing a sign, doesn't have horns. It does not arrive bearing obvious malice or clearly wrong intention. The force that covers your sovereign awareness does not look like an adversary. It looks like home. And home is not something a child actually questions. Home is something a child enters. And that's how it all gets set up. Example, your grandmother's faith was not manipulation, or your uncle or your parents. It was genuine. Your pastor's conviction was not deception. It was sincere. I want you to all to know that it was a level of sincerity that they presented the story, the theology to you. The community that formed around you shared beliefs that was not a conspiracy. Okay? It was a human being doing what human beings do, gathering around shared meanings and offering that meaning to the people they love. And none of that changes what this conditioning was actually doing. The most effective delivery system for installed belief is always love, trust, and community. It's something that even fear cannot uh, cause you to take on. That is a belief. Not because those offering it intended to harm you, but because those are the channels through which a child's understanding of reality is formed before they have a capacity to examine it. That's why I always encourage us that at some point in our lives, we have to question our beliefs because we took them on as children. We took them on as from a place of who the individual who's delivering it to us has our highest and greatest good in mind. So that's really important that we understand that. Let me mute somebody. We got someone I need to mute there. There you go. Awesome. So I just wanted to put that in perspective, so that the people that delivered us our belief system were not set. The love was not set. The architecture of the beliefs that they gave us was set. And it has traveled through the most trustworthy vessels available. Now, let's look at something that is common to all of us. I want to bring in something from the world of psychology that will make this a little personal and easier to understand. In psychology, there's something known as family systems theory, the study of how families unconsciously organize themselves to maintain stability. It tells us something precise about how this conditioning doesn't just arrive once and stop. It gets renewed generation after generation through the roles each family member is assigned to keep the system stable. Now, the roles are assigned not necessarily by saying this is your role, this is your role, but these are the roles that we ultimately take up. Every family has them. You got the peacemaker who absorbs the conflict so the surface stays calm. You have the family hero whose success proves the family is fine even though it's a wreck. You got the scapegoat who carries what no one else will name, the lost child who disappears rather than disturb the equilibrium of the family. The roles are not chosen, they are assigned by the invisible logic of a system that needs everyone in place for the conditioning to hold. And here's where Set enters the family system specifically. Those roles get spiritualized, sanctified, dressed in doctrinal um, language that makes them feel like not like family's unconscious strategy, but like God's design for your life. You just feel like this is who I am. This is God who's designed me to be. But we don't realize that this is who we become because of the family that has molded us. The peacemaker. This individual becomes um, the personification of blessed are the peacemakers. The one who never questions becomes honor thy father and thy mother. The one who sacrifices their own expression to maintain the family harmony is told they are being Christ-like. The one who begins to ask sovereign questions get labeled divisive, rebellious, spiritually dangerous. Now, we can look at this from the perspective of your family of origin, or you can look at it from the community, the family you belong to, the church you belong to. You take on these roles. The programming uses the family's own love to enforce its logic. And the person inside of the system rarely recognizes it as a system at all. Because to them, it has always simply been how the family works, how faith works, how love works. Let me So we got to be conscious of that. We want to be aware that we all in a system, in a it could be a family, it could be a church, it could be a fraternity, it could be whatever you're involved in, and we take on a role. If we don't watch it, we take on a role, and it's those roles that causes us to reinforce the belief that perhaps don't really serve us. So the question this morning is, what role were you assigned? And what spiritual language was used to make that role feel sacred rather than assigned? And we're having this conversation because I'm moving you all towards what I like to call sovereign spirituality, to define, to name, to express your spiritual self, your through sovereignty. Each of us are given free will. So that means we have the ability, or we have the pattern to be sovereign. Now, I want to name the programming more precisely because naming a thing removes its power over you. This is from the Kemetic tradition and it's true. What was installed in most of us through the combination of family systems and religious framework is what I call transactional religion. And the logic of it is precise. If the divine is separate from you, above you, beyond you, requiring specific conditions to be accessed, then you need something that knows those conditions and can navigate them on your behalf. You need an institution. You need an intermediary. You need the prescribed pathway. You need a church. You need a pastor. Without them or it, you are spiritually alone, spiritually unprotected, and spiritually at risk. So the transaction is precise. You give obedience, compliance, tithe, conformity, performance. And what you receive is belonging, access to the vine, protection from separation. But if you fail to give, you risk losing access. That's why many people don't want to make the necessary transitions to sovereign spirituality because they have allowed by default something outside of themselves to control them. So you risk losing access to source, to the divine, to your own spiritual existence under this system. The relationship is always contingent. Love becomes conditional, and the divine becomes a creditor. And you were born carrying a debt, remember, born in sin, that you did not choose and cannot pay in full. The debt, that debt, is the programming's most powerful tool. It ensures you keep coming back, keep performing, keep believing the institution holds the key to what you actually already are. Diviners, the divine is not a creditor. You don't owe a debt you were born carrying. That was never Source's design. That was the program speaking. Now, I want to offer you something today that may be the most liberating reframe in the entire 5 weeks we're inside of. The Kemetic wisdom tradition has a concept called Isfet, Isfet, Isfet. And it means misalignment with cosmic order, with Ma'at, with your own sovereign nature. Isfet as a principle is real. The sovereign soul takes this seriously. When you drift from alignment, now you know that word. So you could look at it, isfet is whenever you're out of alignment. When you drift from alignment with who you actually are, there are real consequences. But here is the precise distinction that transactional religion erased. Isfet is temporary. You're only out of alignment with source temporary. Now, it could be a moment, it could be a season. It's a condition and not a character issue. It is where you are, not what you are. Isfet says you are out of alignment. Return to balance, return to Ma'at. You can do that yourself through your own conscious reorientation. It starts with awareness. I am out of alignment. And you could bring yourself back into alignment. No institution is required. No intermediary is required. No debt payment is required to come back into alignment. See, religion took this precise Kemetic concept and transformed it into what we call sin. And it made sin something that was diabolical. Whereas even in the word sin, original meaning is that means missing the mark. And it really means out of alignment. Permanent moral failure requiring institution redemption is the definition it has taken on. So we see that religion took something that was sovereign to the soul, or each of us, that each of us could correct through our own consciousness, own reorientation, and made it something only an institution could fix, only a priest can fix, only a pastor can fix, only a church can fix. That was not theology. That was really a design. Now, Isfet locates the correction inside of you, inside of the sovereign soul, whereas sin locates the correction inside of the institution. The change, the solution is in the institution, where Isfet says the correction, the solution is inside of the sovereign soul, each of us. This single shift is the entire framework of spiritual dependency in one sentence. You cannot sin your way out of source. You can only misalign temporarily from your own sovereign nature. And temporary misalignment is always correctable through conscious return to what you know to be true. Notice I said what you know to be true, not what you believe. What you know to be true, what experientially you've come to know as truth. I want to offer you something to sit with in this moment while we're together. If you're able to, I want you to close your eyes, okay, and just think of the framework you were handed, not the people who handed it to you, not the love, but the condition itself, the transaction, the debt, the role you were assigned in your family spiritual system, the role you were assigned in the church, you know, the role you were assigned, the limitations that were imposed on you. Now I want you to ask yourself, did the conditioning ever actually reach all the way down to what you are? Or did it only just reach as far as your awareness of what you are? Did it just cover you? See, Seth can fill you with the experience of unworthiness or Satan or that inner self, which is your enemy. It cannot make you actually unworthy because worthiness is not something that is earned or revoked. It is the nature of an aspect of source, expressing its sovereign nature. So, source does not see you as worthy or unworthy, for you are worthy because you are a piece of source. And even though you may be going through something, you're not the thing you're going through. Even though you made a decision that was less than perfect, it is an expression in your life as sin. You are not sin. You have just missed the mark. The conditioning got into us that affects us. And this conditioning is real. And it never reached the thing that it was trying to replace. That is, even though you've had this condition, it has never reached your heart. It just reached your head. Now, I know some of you are sitting there or listening in thinking, Asar, this is all well and good. But you're asking me to look critically at what my grandmother's faith was, what my father's faith was, perhaps what my mentor's faith that was delivered to me. And I don't know if I'm ready to do that. I hear you. I hear you. This is not about your grandmother. It's your grandfather, your father. Your grandparent, your parents is not the architecture. Your grandmother was a vessel or grandfather, whomever that person that passed this on to you, your belief on to you. They were a vessel through which the architecture traveled, the system, the program is passed on through them. And she or he was also a sovereign aspect of source who loved you as fully as they knew how. Both are true. We are not examining them. We are examining what they carried without knowing they were carrying it. There's a difference here, and it matters. A lot of times you can be a carrier and not even be aware that you are carrying something that is infectious, that can cause others to have a dis-ease. that their lives now are not able to unfold in a way that represents sovereignty, but it unfolds in a way that represents a transactional relationship has to be established and made good on. Now, we are working with an image throughout this 5 weeks. The image that we've been dealing with is an acorn that already contains the fully formed oak. You remember that image? It's complete. It's not fragmented. The whole thing waiting inside the shell. And that's you. So last week I said the soil is not punishment. Soil is just where seeds wait before they rise. So you may feel like there's a lot of manure in your life, but that manure that appears to be bearing you is very manure that is cultivating you, that is crushing you, that ultimately the seed of greatness comes through. So this week, I want to add something to that image. Sometimes the soil is not just soil. Sometimes the soil has been packed hard by a specific hand, by a specific family system, by an institution, by a framework installed in you before you could question it when you were a child. Hard packed soil does not change what's inside the acorn. It just makes the rising slower and maybe a little more difficult. It makes the emergence require more intention. And that's what the trajectory that each of us are on. We are emerging, but it requires our attention. And not just the attention of awareness of this thing, but willing to do the work to come forth. This is where many of us are. Not trying to become something new. We're trying to rise through architecture or beliefs that was packed around us before we ever arrived to the level of sovereignty. And the first step in that rising is naming the beliefs, the architecture precisely, without bitterness, without blame, just with clarity. Because what was placed over your sovereignty was never more powerful than your sovereignty itself. It was only more familiar. Familiarity is not the same as truth. And you are here right now, developing the clarity to tell the difference. So, what does this mean for how you actually live this week? First, when you feel that old pull of the transaction, oh, I got to do this, I got to make good on this with God, that sense that you must perform, comply, or conform to maintain your access to the divine, name it. Not with anger, simply that's old belief. That's not source. That is the thing that needs to be renewed. The divine does not require your performance in any way. It requires your presence. The divine desires presence over performance. Say that with me. Presence over performance. It's like a child as a parent, a good parent, that is, a 3-year-old. You love them in spite of them. A 1-year old. It's not until the child starts aging when we start putting conditions on our love. And we begin to have relationships with the child, and the child relationship becomes more transactional. And so we take that same idea on with source. Your relationship with source, God the Father, God the Mother, however you want to name it, is not transactional. Secondly, look at the role your family, and I'm not just talking about your family of origin, it could be the church or the influencer has assigned to you. Not to condemn anyone that assigned it, but ask honestly, is that role still running in you? Is that the program that I'm running? Is that the belief that I'm holding? Are you still playing the peacemaker, the hero, the one who never asks sovereign questions in order to maintain belonging in a system that assigns you that position before you could choose. Awareness of the role is the beginning of sovereign choice about whether to keep playing it or not. Maybe you're just a peacemaker. Maybe you just I go along to get along. And when we talk about cognitive dissonance, a lot of it sets in when you start dealing with the role that you have to give up. Thirdly, practice the language this week of ISFET, 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 over the language of sin. Just say, I'm out of alignment. Don't say, I have sinned. Because when you say, I have sinned, you automatically put yourself under that old framework of transactional relationships. The next time you drift from alignment, and you will, because we all will, because you are human, having you are a divine being having a human experience. I don't want you to ask, what is wrong with me? I want you to ask this. Where am I out of alignment and how do I return? I feel out of alignment. How do I come back into alignment? That question belongs to a sovereign soul, someone who is stepping into their sovereignty. The other one belongs to programming. Okay? Now, before I bring this together, if any of the language we use today is new to you, write it down. Set, Isfat, Ma'at, transactional religion. These are the tools this series run on. You'll hear them again in weeks ahead. Set, been converted to Satan. It's your inner self. It's your inner me that oftentimes, because it's that part of you that is limiting you, that is questioning you, that is making you feel less than, that is saying you are not able to, is that part of you that's seeking to unset you. It's the inner challenge you must face. Isfat is the alignment. Isfat versus sin. Ma'at is the balance. You're looking for balance. And when we're talking about transactional religion, we're talking about what I do, what I have to do to be compliant. So let's bring this together. Set does not arrive as an enemy. It arrives as love, as family, as community. And the conditioning travels through the most trustworthy vessels available. The people were not Set or Satan. The conditioning, what the belief was the diabolical thing. The family system, assigned roles that get spiritualized by the religious framework, creating generational renewal of this conditioning in all of us. What role were you assigned? And what doctrinal language made it feel sacred rather than chosen? Thirdly, Isfat again is not sin. Isfat is temporal, temporary misalignment, correctable by a sovereign soul itself. Religion transformed it into permanent moral failure, requiring institutional redemption or someone to operate on your behalf. That transformation was programming, not theology. Even when we look at the concept of Jesus as the sacrificial lamb, and that makes a lot of people what I call spiritually unaccountable. Spiritually, they have now says that someone else has paid the price, but that's false theology. You have to pay the price. You have to pay the price. Nobody can die for you. Nobody can resurrect you. No one can transform you but you. Now, before we close, I want to speak briefly to the principle of circulation, which I do each week. Everything in nature moves. Everything in nature moves. Energy flows. And what we give returns to us in kind. So this Sunday seminar exists because people invest in them with their attention by showing up, their engagement, and most of all, their support. If this has been a place of value for you this morning, I invite you to support its continuation in whatever way feels aligned for you. If you desire to give this morning, give from abundance, not a mindset of I only have. If you're thinking I only have, then don't give. because you have some work to do with your belief system. If you're thinking this is all I got, I, you don't give because you have some work to do. Because I want you to learn to give from abundance and not from my obligation. I'm going to love you. I'm going to share with you. I'm going to do within my power to do, whether you give or not. It's not transactional, it's relational. So if today isn't the season for that, simply being here is enough. But if you are here this morning and you desire to sow a seed into this space, you can do so by way of Cash App or Zelle using the ministry phone number, which is 708 368 1076. 708 368 1076. Now, thank you. Someone dropped that in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, let us close with an affirmative prayer, which is the tradition of this ministry. We don't beg for what we need, we affirm what is already true at the level of our consciousness. I affirm that the clarity arriving in this room today is not destruction, it's restoration. It is the sovereign soul naming precisely what was placed over it so it can finally, consciously choose to step out of it. So here's our affirmation. We affirm that Set entered and the drama did not end with the scattering. It never does. The drama continues toward the reassembly, toward the remembering, toward the sovereign wholeness that was always already present beneath everything that was placed over it. We affirm that every person in this space carries a sovereign nature that no architect, no belief system has ever reached. That was placed over it was never who they are. What was installed in them was never the final word about them. Asar was never gone. That's you. Neither were you. And so it is. Ashe. Amen. Now, the belief of forgetting is real and is not the last word about you. It was installed before you could question it, through the people you trusted most, in the name of love that was genuine, even when the framework carried was not. You're not here to condemn any of that. You are here to see it clearly. And clarity in the Kemetic tradition is always sovereign ground. So we have 3 more Sundays in this journey. Next week, we're going to look at Aset, the principle of sovereign inner intelligence that searches for what was scattered and never stops until she finds it. And I promise you, that part of you is already operating. You're on that journey. Something is seeking, something is calling you, something is compelling you. Aset began moving the moment you started asking the questions that brought you here. If you're new with us, I want you to stay for the green room. You can unmute, introduce yourself, ask questions. This is a community that is built on real conversation. If you're joining us on YouTube, drop a comment right now. Tell me which role you were assigned. I read everyone. So if you have a comment, I see some of you, my mom there, I see King T. I see you guys there in the YouTube channel. So I want to say, have a wonderful day if you're dropping off. And if you're not, if you're sticking around for the green room experience, excellent. The mic is now live. Excellent. Thank you, Renee, for dropping that number into the chat there. That's 708-368-1076. Let me look back through some of the comments that were made. Rachel said, "Isfat, so temporary misalignment, institution sin, yes, forever under the bondage of sin nature, or forever performing to be part of." We were handed taught a performance-based theology. That is true. No thing, no one can separate us from source. And we used to say it in the old church, nothing can separate us from the love of God. But we turn around and being told that if you don't give, God is not going to bless you. We turn around and told that if you don't accept Christ as your personal savior, you're going to hell. So it's always been transactional. And but we got to understand it was about growing an institution. And the institution, the system was put in place that somebody benefits from it if you only knew how powerful you were. Excellent. So you're with us this morning. If you have a something you want to share, a aha moment, go ahead and raise your hand. I'm looking here to see if we have any hands raised. Okay. So as I was saying, this series is taken from inside of my book that is soon to be released. I've been taking some time going back through it. I could have written a book many years ago, but somebody asked me why it took so long because it wasn't time. I know we live in a day and age where everybody got a book. It's almost like back in the 90s. Everybody had a business card. But I don't read everybody's book. I'm sorry. And I wanted to have something that was a source document that individuals who are in transition could go to as they redefine themselves, as they transcend the limitations that have been put on them. All right, I see I got one hand up here. It's the iPhone. Good. I believe that might be Cheryl. You're unmuted. Go ahead, Cheryl, or unmute yourself. Let me see here.
Grand
Okay.
Rising.
There you go.
Grand Rising Diviners. Oh, this was so good. I mean, this was really good because I was raised in the Catholic faith, and all those different prayers and things and what they taught us was just totally not the truth. It just was not the truth. And so as I became an adult and I realized that I was so enraged, I was enraged with them, and I was going up to the church to tell them a thing or two. But anyway, since that time and joining this wonderful community, I've been so enlightened, and my mind and my knowledge has expanded so much that the concept about you needing somebody to stand in between you and the creator is just ludicrous, just ridiculous. I mean, if we understand, if we believe any portion of the quote unquote holy scriptures, and the beginning it says, they said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, then that means we are like the divine creator. So we should not need anything or anyone to come between us to bring us to it. So this has just been so good. I'm excited to continue with this series, and blessings upon you, Asar, for your continued diligence with bringing truth to light, and bringing us to a place of inner and deeper awareness of
Yeah.
our divine nature. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And then a lot of people don't understand what a significant role that Catholicism or the Catholic Church plays in our religious expression. When we understand that 325 AD was significant in that the Roman political system chose to co-opt the religions of that day and come up with a universal religion. That's what Catholicism means, universal religion. And what they did was put a system in place that would not upset the political or the Roman Empire, but would lend itself to making sure there was peace. Because what was going on in the Roman Empire early on was there were so many religious factions. So they began to not fight against it, but they called all the bishops together in 325 AD. They convened this. Constantine reconvened this, and that's where they came up with some of the basic beliefs that would be so, or the tenets of the faith. And after a long period of time, a guy by the name of Luther, about 500 years ago, came on the scene. And what he did was he took a stance against Catholicism, and he said that these edicts really weren't correct. He gave 95 edicts against the church, and he was ostracized because he was a Protestant. That's where we get the Protestant faith. So if you are a Protestant, that is, if you're Catholic, I'm not Catholic, if you're Lutheran, you're Baptist, if you're anything other than Catholic, but you practice the belief in Jesus Christ, you're a Protestant. You protested the Catholic Church. So we have to understand that we have been impacted by these things that's been handed down. Now, they didn't just leave the Catholic Church. They should have left the whole thing alone. But what they did was they protested certain pieces and they kept others. And that's what we have done. If you look at your evolution, many of you in this conversation this morning, there's things that you've yet to release. And I'm not here to tell you when to release them or if you need to release them. That's part of my belief that you have a sovereignty about yourself. So I'm not going to sit here and say to you, you got to stop reading this, you got to stop believing this. But I am going to say to you, how expedient is it? How does it represent your highest and greatest good? And do you know why you're choosing to believe the thing you believe? And most of us don't. It was just handed to us generationally. So we have to be careful of that. So thank you, Sister Cheryl. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, I look around here. Any other aha moments that anybody would like to share? We have a couple more minutes before I prepare myself to get out of here. I'm teaching this morning at the Center for Divine Love, south side of St. Louis. It's a divine science ministry. So, all right, I don't see any other hands. I'm looking here. Okay, there you go. Rachel, you have the mic. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Grand Rising Oasis family. I
Yes.
just, Brother Sarah, I too, like Sister Cheryl, this is very enlightening. And I'm just thankful that you answered the call to teach us, to awaken us, at this time in my life. And I can too attest that I was angry once I found out so much, but I had to realize that they was only passing down to us what they knew, and then we
Yes.
passed down to our children, what we knew. And I'm not gonna say it's a struggle, but it's like the chains, we've taken the lock off the chain, but yet and still the chain is still there. We're
Yes.
still holding, we're still holding on at as a, I don't consider it a form of security. It's just you have to remind yourself to let go, and that it's just some of the things that I learned is not serving me. It just was not for my highest and greatest good, especially if we want to involves change. And the familiarity, getting away from that can be real challenging. But you know that once you settle back in it, you're not comfortable. It doesn't feel good.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's like you say, it's not about security. What it is about is familiarity. It's difficult to let go of something we're familiar with. You can be in a relationship that does not serve you, but you become so familiar with it, and you know this is as bad as it gets, so I'll stick with what I know versus the possibility of what I could get. So I really encourage us to take the bold stand in realizing that you got to get away from the familiar to get into that place of pure possibility and pure potential coming forward. That's really important.
Like the song says, it's cheaper to keep her.
Yes, that's that guy, that blues singer from the 70s, Cheaper to Keep Her. Yeah, I heard that play in my house many a day, and I used to be listening and say, what is my dad trying to say to my mom? And then sometimes I was like, wow, that's a deep message, but it really can be, and a lot of people are in relationships because it's cheaper to keep her. In the case of,
Yeah,
then you
something
got
beats
child
nothing.
support, then you lose everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, something beats nothing.
Something beats nothing. But you know what the universe does? It'll keep allowing it to get worse until you do what serves your highest and greatest good. Awesome. Excellent. Sister Myrna, first I want to say thank you, Sister Rachel. Sister Myrna, I see your hand. You got the mic. Go ahead.
Hello, Grand Rising.
Yes.
Um, I first of all, I 100% agree with everyone. This is a great series. It's thought-provoking, and in this process of transitioning in our understanding and our as we individually mature and develop, um, uh, I began when Maia was, I want to say 7 or 8,
Hmm.
questioning and challenging what I was being taught. It started before her, but because of wanting to maintain not the familiarity, but the teaching that I knew, um, as I began questioning, I didn't know where to go and what to do to get a difference other than speaking with the Lord. And whenever I would talk to pastors, um, some of not well ministers, pastors, whomever, um, they were intrigued by my questioning, my curiosity. They didn't answer anything; they just were intrigued by my questioning, my curiosity. Um, and it so happened that my father had passed away at that point, so I didn't have the opportunity to really challenge him or ch question him, because I know that through him I was already inquisitive, um, and so or taught to challenge the system and question the system. And so in that, um, in my journey and in my quest, Maia has gone through um, different orientations than many other young people because I didn't stick and stay, but at the same time, as I'm questioning and curious and confused, and she's getting as a young person that whole questioning and confused, and so I can so me being 29 years older than her, um, um, I'm thoughtful of her now. She's here and here with me. I'm thoughtful of her now and how, um, uh, with what's going on in the system, is how do you one have your children to give you grace in that you didn't know, you trying to figure it out as you go, and you just knew that it wasn't right, and you didn't want them exposed to the wrongness of it, but at the same time maintaining that connection and relationship with the Lord, with God, and understanding that that's sovereign, that's the one. And while everything around you is teaching you to do other, it's you're trying to figure it out and find words to express it. And so I can only imagine how other parents in this group, and how their children are responding or reacting to um, what they've been taught, and their orientation and coming through the transitions with the parents too. And so it's an interesting space here as a parent who's trying to figure it out and at the same time help guide your children so that they don't have the same challenges, but at the same time they have to live their own life. And at what level do you um, uh, see them making great strides and at the same time making some huge mistakes? And so and then step back and say, okay, God, you're in control. You're in them like you're in me. And so at what point do you offer to correct, offer to um um encourage, and then allow the time to unfold. As our elders used to say, just keep living, but my attitude is always, oh, could someone have just told me so I at least have some knowledge, as opposed to someone just letting me bump my head, so I'm at that betwixt and between. So
Yeah, and so that all as a parent, I've had to deal with that. Back in the '90s, when I first started pastoring, after having been in ministry for 11 years, and then I began to have children, and I began to pastor a church. I was always conscientious of everything I was teaching wasn't always what I believed. Or I was always teaching what we all believe, but was not what I had come to know as being the truth. And there came to a point where I had to say, you know what? I can't continue to operate in a traditional sense, knowing that I don't believe what like the Baptist Creed or whatever denomination I was in. I either had to leave that denomination or keep teaching what the denomination teaches at the expense of the next generation because they look at me as if he's teaching it, it must be tried and true. And so as parents, what we have to always do is leave space. First of all, we have to live out what we say we believe, what we know to be true. We should be living it out because our children learn by not what we say, but by what we do. And then we have to leave space. Like if my children are doing something that I really don't believe is the right way to go, I may ask them, "Can you help me understand your thinking, or help me understand your decision?" Not from a place of judgment, but really wanting to get to know. And it's really sometimes I don't really want to really know, but it's helping them to examine themselves and see how they're arriving at decisions. But when it comes down to it, we all have sovereignty. And so attempting to develop a spiritual practice that allows for individual sovereignty, even if they're wrong. Because what I can say, keep living. And source will always give it a ram in the bush. You may not want to go to that ram in the bush because it's unfamiliar and you want to stay with the familiar. But we can never say that source left us in a destitute state. It always refines and makes a way for you to see the truth. Does that make sense or help?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yes,
Awesome.
yes, thank you.
Excellent. So as we prepare to wrap up this morning, coming out of the 4th of July celebration, it was just I was in a heightened state of awareness yesterday. Um, we pass on the lives of this country by celebrating with this country. I know as I was a kid, I knew 4th of July to be just a time to get a nice outfit for the summer and to pop fireworks and have a family feast. But at the same time, inadvertently, subliminally, I was approving, or we were approving the community or the United States. But as we get older, have a conflict because we say, this hasn't worked out for us. And last night I spent some time watching a few YouTube channels on the Reconstruction period. Right out of Reconstruction, we were in a beautiful place. The South, I think it was South Carolina, had the most Africans in America in political position, from governors to treasurers. I think it was South Carolina, and the South didn't like that. They did not like that, and ultimately there was some changes that took place politically. And because I asked myself, how did we go from coming out of um, enslavement, moving into the Reconstruction, and we're beginning to make great strides to ultimately we get unseated. And we can see it today, how it's happening today. And so this country is built on systemic racism. And even though many of the whites that we know don't um are not racist in the from the perspective of the behavior, but they're complicit in that they don't take a stand verbally against the systems that are in place. Like when we look at Christianity, the church has been complacent or have complied with you got a different Christianity that's running the country. And it is not a Christianity that is the same as what I would say is the traditional Black Christianity, where it's for the good of all mankind. And so we have to understand that there is a continual um, uh, attempt to get us to buy narratives. And it's sad to say that the religious narrative, the religious pathway is the one that keeps so many of us in bondage because we feel like we have to love, we have to turn the other cheek, we have to do all of those things that they don't do. So it's just been a insightful last few days. Yes, it's been insightful. Awesome. Rachel, did you have something else? Go ahead.
Oh, I typed it in when you said that systemic racism. It is just like it said, their silence simply says, I still agree with the violence that's taking place, So that
Mhm.
is so true. Even when I have visited or see, and when there's churches, when they're mixed churches, mixed race churches, that there's a lot of things that's not brought out. Even though you have such a great amount of African American support in your church, you don't see any speaking out or speaking up against, what is being done. So, yeah.
Right. The silence. And a lot of times they're silent because they're benefiting from. So we have a political system, we have laws in place, but at the same time, we are seeing them being changed. That's what happened in the South. The laws that was enacted that allow the Africans to become their best self and self-actualize, they were challenged, and ultimately the law was displaced by a new law. And that's what's ever happening in our country today. So I can't say we're great. I can't celebrate 250 years because at the inception of this country, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we were still seen as less than. We were enslaved. This country has yet to fully, matter of fact, the world has yet to fully embrace the significance that the African plays. They have yet to embrace the reality that everything came from black, that all mankind started on that continent. And as over hundreds of thousands of years, we get the variation. But guess what? I can end with this. I'll tell them this. Your mama was black. When it all boils down to it, so you take it back to the mitochondria, it was a black woman. Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. So I don't want to keep
This one girl
ranting. Yeah,
said, what I ain't gonna say the word what she said, but she said, I just want to let everybody know y'all all start out as ends. She said
yeah,
everybody was the N word if you want to call us that, but
that's right.
everybody started off as black.
That's right. That's why somebody can say, somebody call you an N word, you can say your mama was the N word, and there'll be some truth to that because everything started through us. We were the prototype. We, let me rephrase, we are the prototype, but we need to get back to living as the prototype, as the divine expression. Every religion that has been unfolded starts a seed with one of the concepts that is found in the continent. Yes, yes. Deborah Rose says the church legitimized enslavement. Yes, it did. And it continues it. It continues even through the depiction. We know the picture's worth 1,000 words. Even if you want to believe in a Jesus, the historical Jesus could not no way have had blonde hair and blue eyes. So we just have allowed them to retell the story in a way that serves them. And if they have the audacity, if they have the okay to tell the story in a way that serves them, why don't we tell the story in a way that serves us? After all, they're all stories, and a story can be looked at as a lie. That's all I got to say. Goodbye. You guys have a wonderful evening, wonderful day. And I'll close with this song and see how you like this. Get this song to come up. Why is it playing? Oh, I know why it's playing because I got my earbuds here and I can't because I don't have the other feature, so you cannot hear what I'm playing. Oh, there you go. All right, have a wonderful Sunday, guys. Let me know if you can hear it. I don't want to be playing if it's not able to be heard.
I don't hear anything.
You don't hear anything? How about now? All the time ago,
Yeah, I hear it now.
the years went fast, but the day went slow. Numbers older than standing where I used to be. Yeah, off my way and turned around. Every road I took, they led me right here where they took me. Yesterday, I said, I kept on living over. Now I'm where I used to be. There's still a lot out there. Oh, I'm full of life. I did. Kept on slipping away.